Sarah and Linda had always had a complicated relationship, filled with jealousy and rivalry since childhood. Sarah, the older sister, was always the more responsible and loving one, while Linda often felt overshadowed by her sister's achievements. Their parents praised Sarah for her kindness and intelligence, which only fueled Linda's envy. One of the most painful memories for Sarah was when they were both in their early 20s. Sarah had met a wonderful man named David, who wanted to marry her. They were deeply in love, and Sarah was overjoyed at the prospect of starting a family with him. However, Linda, driven by jealousy, started to flirt with David, trying to win his affection. Eventually, David became confused and started to fall for Linda's advances. Heartbroken, Sarah decided to let him go, believing that love couldn't be forced and wanting David to be happy, even if it meant losing him to her sister. Linda married David, but their relationship was always rocky. Sarah, despite her own pain, continued to support her sister emotionally and financially, hoping that one day Linda would appreciate her sacrifices and realize the value of family. Soon after their wedding, Sarah left the country for a better life and prospects and now has been living in the United States for 10 years. For the past 5 years, Sarah had been diligently sending money home to Linda to build a house for her in Nigeria. Each month, she sent a significant portion of her salary, trusting Linda to oversee the construction and purchase building materials. Linda would send Sarah pictures and updates, claiming the costs were rising and more funds were needed. Sarah believed her, thinking her sister had her best interest at heart. This continued until the building was completed. What she didn't know was that the house was in Linda's name, not her name. Being innocent and kind, Sarah told Linda that she and her family can stay at the boys' quarters of her house since they were struggling financially. After the building was completed, Sarah arrived in Nigeria unexpectedly. She was excited to be home and couldn't wait to relax in the house she had worked so hard to build. But when she opened the door, she was shocked to find a couple from Canada staying there. They seemed friendly and told her they were paying guests. Sarah's heart sank. How could this be happening? This was supposed to be her sanctuary, not a guest house. She felt heartbroken, as Linda made the main house an Airbnb, collecting all proceeds. Sarah didn't know what to do. Should she ask them to leave? Instead, she decided to stay in a hotel for the 2 weeks she was in Nigeria. Every night at the hotel, she felt sad and confused. Why was her house being used like this? She didn't understand how this had happened. She thought about calling her sister, but she was too upset. So, she waited and tried to enjoy her stay, though it was hard. On her last day in Nigeria, Sarah left a voicemail for Linda. In it, she told her sister that she and her husband needed to move out of her house by the end of the month. Sarah felt a bit better after sending the message, but then her phone rang. It was her mother. "Why are you being so wicked?" her mother asked angrily. Sarah tried to explain, but her mother wouldn't listen. Her mother didn't know what Linda and her husband had done. Sarah's heart ached because she loved her family, but they had made her feel like an outsider in her own home. It was a hard lesson, but she learned that sometimes, even family can hurt you. It's important to be careful and stand up for yourself even when it's difficult. When Sarah hung up the phone, she felt tears rolling down her cheeks. She remembered all the good times she had with her family. But now, things were different. She couldn't just ignore what had happened. She knew she had to be strong. As the plane took off, Sarah looked out the window and watched Nigeria grow smaller and smaller. She promised herself that she would find a way to make things right, even if it meant making tough decisions. Family is important, but so is respecting yourself and your home. Back in her new city, Sarah felt both relieved and worried. What would happen next? Would her sister understand why she did what she did? Would her mother ever forgive her? Only time would tell. As days turned into weeks, Sarah started to feel a bit better. She focused on her work and tried to keep busy. But every now and then, she would think about her family and wonder if things would ever be the same again. One evening, Sarah received a call from Linda. She was furious. "How dare you kick us out like that?" Linda shouted. "You have no right to treat us this way." Sarah tried to explain her side, but Linda wouldn't listen. She hung up angrily, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She knew this wasn't over. A few days later, Sarah started receiving strange messages from unknown numbers. They were full of threats and warnings. She couldn't sleep, and she felt scared all the time. She had no idea who was behind them, but she had a sinking feeling it was connected to Linda. She started falling sick repeatedly with unexplainable diagnoses, unable to walk, then decided to return to Nigeria and get herbal treatments as she was advised by friends. When she got to her house, Sarah got a letter from a lawyer. Linda was suing her, claiming that Sarah had unlawfully evicted her and her husband. Sarah couldn't believe it. How could her sister do this to her? They were family. Sarah hired her own lawyer and prepared for the battle ahead. The legal process was long and stressful. Each court date felt like a nightmare, and Linda's cold glares made it even worse. Meanwhile, the mysterious messages continued. They became more sinister, talking about curses and juju, dark magic. Sarah felt like she was living in a horror movie. She didn't know who to trust or where to turn. One night, as Sarah lay in bed, she heard a noise outside her window. Her heart pounded as she got up to check. There, on her doorstep, was a small, eerie-looking doll with pins stuck in it and her name on the forehead. Sarah gasped and backed away, her hands trembling. She knew this was a warning. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She called her mother, desperate for help. But when she told her everything, her mother didn't believe her. "You're just being paranoid," her mother said dismissively. "Your sister wouldn't do such things." Sarah felt so alone. Her own family was against her. But she couldn't give up. She had to find a way to protect herself and reclaim her life. The court case dragged on, and each day felt heavier than the last. But slowly, Sarah began to gather evidence that showed Linda and her husband had indeed taken advantage of her. The judge listened carefully, and finally, after what felt like forever, the verdict was in Sarah's favor. Sarah won the case, but it didn't feel like a victory. Her relationship with Linda was shattered, and she still felt haunted by the dark events that had unfolded. In the aftermath, Sarah took steps to secure her home and her peace of mind. She changed her phone number and installed security cameras. She also sought help from a pastor and counselor to cope with the spiritual and emotional scars. It was a long journey, but eventually, Sarah started to heal. She learned that standing up for yourself is necessary, even when it's painful. Family can hurt you, but you must protect your boundaries. Years later, as Sarah looks back, she realized that this experience made her stronger. It taught her to value her own well-being and to be cautious, even with those closest to her. And though her heart still ached for the family bond that was broken, Sarah found solace in knowing that she had the courage to face the darkness and come out the other side, stronger and wiser. Thank you for staying till the end. Did you learn something from it? Please share it with me in the comment section. Also, please like and subscribe to this channel to see more stories every day. See you tomorrow.